Welcome to The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. Host Randy Chevrier and Sheldon Napashka guide you through great stories that spark great conversations. Two really big guys talking a big game. The boys are locked in and ready to go. Welcome to The Ride.
Welcome to The Ride. Sheldon, I am excited for this one. This one has been kind of percolating for a few months now. We've got Maven Maurer, former teammate of yours. You knew her as Mike. Maven recently transitioned, I guess openly, as she's been probably on this journey her entire life, or at least for the better part of her life. But more recently, Maven Maurer, who was Mike Maurer, two-time Grey Cup winner with the Edmonton Eskimos in 2005 and the BC Lions, I believe, in 2000. Named Canadian of the Grey Cup, one of the highest honors you can get.
Outstanding Canadian,
yeah. And here she is. Last couple of weeks, caught a little bit of media attention. She went back to BC for her Grey Cup reunion with former teammates. Showed up as Maven. That's her life. That's her authentic self is now. Been doing a little bit of the press tour, but I've been talking to her, messaging Maven since the summer, since I knew that she had been living openly as a woman. I thought this is a fantastic story. There's so many questions I want to ask her. You were teammates with her. What are you looking forward to in this?
Well, and that's just it. Not only teammates, I think we were road dogs on a couple of trips as well. Only played together about a year and a half. But I'm just fascinated the whole thing. Like, look, Chev, like we're 50-year-old dads, right? This isn't something I'm exposed to on an everyday basis. And I hear all the polarized sides in the media of people's takes. You know what I really want to do? I just want to connect with an old teammate and hear her story, because this is something, to be honest with you, it's a little hard to wrap your head around at first. Like when I first found out, I was like, really? That's the last thing I expected from Maurer. I'm like, well, who would you expect that from? I am really interested to hear about the journey, when it started, when she started asking those questions and started, seeking answers. Because I'll tell you, Maurer was always a person that was driven, trained hard, a true professional. He played for 12 years.
It was like the man's man.
Yeah,
his nickname was the Wolverine. Did MMA fighting. Was in the armed forces, I believe. EMT, like did all the ultimate man jobs. So yeah, I'm curious too. And you got two choices, right? You got two choices when you're faced with things like you said. We don't see this every day. I have a little bit of exposure to it. One of my firefighter buddies came out as a woman, and when she came out to me, I was one of the first people she told. And at the moment, it was actually quite an honor, because I was like, wow, like this person trusts me. But at the same time, I didn't know how to handle it. And I told her then, I said, I don't understand it, but I support you. You're my friend. And obviously you're going through this, and you're going to need support from the people that love you. And so you have two choices. You could bury your head in the sand and say, no, I don't want to hear it, or I hate it. Or you can ask questions. And I'm curious. I know you're curious, and asking questions and learning is probably the best way to go when you don't understand something. Would you agree?
Yeah, completely. And that's why I'm so excited. And I think at this point, Chef, why don't we just get to it? I think that we've got Maven in studio now. So guys, give us 2 seconds here while we go to commercial break. Again, this is going to be a big one. If you like it, make sure you share it out on all the socials at Chevy and Nasty. You can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere that you're getting your social media. This is going to be on. And guys, grab yourself a drink, grab yourself a snack. When we come back, former teammate, CFL great, Maven Maurer.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto, or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Do you want your business to be known? YYCCalgaryBusiness.ca is Calgary's only online media platform that gets you noticed. Short-form video content is rapidly taking over as the most effective way to engage your audience. Whether you're being interviewed on a vodcast, sharing a sizzle reel, or even hosting your own show, there is one place you can publicize your business. We want to tell your story and introduce you to our network of empowered business owners and leaders right here in Calgary. Isn't it time you took your digital game to 11? Call us or email us now.
Welcome to the ride, everybody. And we are very pleased to introduce you our guest for today, former teammate for myself. Randy, I don't think you guys ever played together. Maven, did you ever play with Chevy in Edmonton, or you guys just missed each other?
No, we just missed each other.
No, Maven won the cup that we gifted to you guys in 2005 after after you guys beat us. Remember 2005? Jason Moss comes off the bench and dinked and dunked his way to the great. And we also gifted Roger Reinson his fourth Grey Cup, because that was the one where he was on his couch and he got called into service right after the game. There's a lot we're going to talk about today, from CFL football to your life journey. It's gonna be a fun one. Maven, welcome to the show. We're of course brought to you each week by Performance Freight Management, We Drone Real Media, and YYC Business. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So it's been a little bit of a whirlwind of, I guess, a week for you. A few weeks ago, 3 Down Nation article had come out talking about you reuniting with your Hall of Fame BC Lions Grey Cup winning team, and that kind of opened the doors for a lot of media attention. How's this been treating you?
You're right. It is a whirlwind. I'm having a lot of trouble sleeping, actually, because I can just feel like the energy and the vibrations are going through me. It's been pretty wild, but I'm just excited to share my story, and I'm excited about what has gone on the last few months here since celebrating the BC Lions, and I'm enjoying it while I can.
So how have you been finding the response so far? Actually, let's backtrack just a second, because I kind of derailed my own introduction. I first met Maven with the Saskatchewan Roughriders when I joined the team for a cup of coffee in '99. I was there for, I think, 6 weeks, and I met a lot of my guys that I've been following for a long time: Colin Scrivener, Randy Straczynski, Mike Maurer, now Maven Maurer, and Maven. From the time that I met you, you were an intimidating physical presence on the football field. The way that you approached the game, you were one of the hardest hitters, one of the strongest guys on the team, and out-trained everybody. And then we got to play for 2 years, and I think we did some stuff on specialties. I don't think you were one of the long snappers back then, but then you had your first, not quite yet. But I think you hit your first adversity somewhere around 2000, beginning of the season, early in the season. You ended up getting released. Now, tell me what was going through your mind when that happened, because I know in Saskatchewan, it was a bit of a cluster that we played for, right? We just went through a couple of different organizations. The team was kind of in a losing setup. Were you, being a guy from Regina, born and raised, playing for the Rams, straight up to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, so a Regina kid, was that a devastating moment in your life, getting cut, or were you still at the mindset that you could go anywhere and play as long as you wanted?
A little bit of both, Sheldon. And yeah, like that was 5 games into the 2000 season. And it was Barrett and Shivers had just gotten there. We were 0-5, and they just wanted to, make it look like they were doing something, right? And so I was one of the casualties. And Gerardo, who we talked about, who was living with me, Paul Gerardo, he was cut the next day. I'm sure there was multiple changes, around that time, because they were really shaking things up. But yeah, I kind of thought I was going to get on with somebody, but then it didn't happen right away. It didn't happen, I think it was about 6 or 7 weeks into 2000, like after I got cut, that BC actually called, and I had taken a position with Ranchero Society. I was working as a childcare worker, and I had already been there during the off season, every off season since '96. But so I had kind of moved on. I kind of thought that I was done.
And so you guys, now I know you in Saskatchewan. Obviously, I'm a long snapper. I spent the bulk of my career as a long snapper, and it was the key to my longevity. I wound up playing 16 years, and I started in college. But from all the stories Sheldon has told me, that you had this club. It was the Bitter Canadians Long Snapper Club, and is that kind of like where things start, where people realize that if you actually can long snap, you can play forever? Is that kind of the nucleus was there in Saskatchewan? The Bitter, what was it called? The Bitter Canadians Club, Sheldon?
No, I think that was right after Maven left. I think where all of us just felt like in that organization, we were just the local guys. We're all treated like, well, we got to find you something to do. Here's a ball, learn to long snap. And it was almost like a put down at the time where we felt like, oh, here's the same old crew. There's 4 of us going out before practice, but that might've been after Maven was released.
I think so, because I don't quite remember that. But then we started our own. Paul Girodo and I started our own club after we both got cut, and we were doing it in the backyard or at the park, on our own time.
Did you ever end up snapping in a CFL game?
I did. So it's funny because I think Randy talked about like not getting cut or contributing or just the more things you can do. When I went to BC, it was, like I said, 7 weeks later. I kept doing it. So I would have somebody catch for me after practice, or I would just fire it against the wall against the wall of the building of the training room facility. And they saw that, right? The coaches saw that. And it was in 2001, they had released Ryanson. They had Jason Krault long snapping, and he was new to the gig. And then I think it was around week 3 or 4, I think he put 4 over Kellett's head. And I was actually home listening to the game on the radio because I was home for my daughter's birth. And I remember my wife even saying, she's like, you're going to be long snapping next week. Because I was doing it still in 2001. Again, not on any depth chart, not on any roster, not in practice, on my own time or to Kellett or whoever. And sure enough, the next week, I'm back there. Krault put another one over Kellett's head. And then Barato came to me on the sideline and he said, I've seen you long snap in practice. Are you confident you can do it in the game? And I lied and I said, yep. And then sure enough, there we go. I'm out there. But like Kellett was a teammate of mine with the Rams. And it was just perfect because he was just like, hey, I've caught for you after practice. Just pretend you and I are doing that. Yeah, and it's just exactly the same we do it in practice. We went out there and I did it, and yeah, it was just out of nowhere, and it was pretty wild. I was nervous as hell, that's for sure.
I would imagine. Tell us about the feeling of, because you by this point you're a seasoned pro. I mean, you've played a ton of games, you've been in a lot of situations. What was that like running from the sideline to the field? Because I had to do it in pregame once in BC. Like I think it was Straczynski's was injured or something, and I was like number 2. And I remember going in the middle of the field and practicing snapping before the game. And the special teams coach on the other side is sitting there with a stopwatch timing you. Like, it's intimidating as hell to have to think that you're going to go into the game. So what was that like taking the steps off? Was it like lead feet, like your first start as a rookie all over again?
A little bit. I really do believe in like the mental preparation as well. And they're like, I've coached my kids and I've coached other kids and stuff like that. But really, the psychology behind it is if, and it's the same for everybody. If you put a 2x4 on the ground and tell people to walk across it, probably 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 people are going to be able to do it. But then as soon as you put that 2x4 on 2 step ladders, 10 feet in the air, all of a sudden they can't do it. So really the only limitation is your mind. So if you can do it in practice, you can do it in a game. You just have to kind of make up your mind that that's what you're going to do. And you block all that other stuff out, and just like, yeah, you just do it just the same way you would in practice. The only thing that's changed is the environment.
And isn't that a great lesson for all young athletes, and especially in the context of football? I coach, Sheldon coaches, Maven, you coach, like you mentioned, and you always tell the kids, the more you can do, right? You mentioned the more you can do. Long snapping is the easiest way to crack a roster in terms of the next level. You know, everybody wants to be the starting linebacker, the fullback, the D tackle. But if you can do that one thing that gets you ahead of every other rookie at the next level, you get a chance to dress. You get a chance to ride the bus. You get a chance to get your name on the trophy, right? And, you know, I think about that story in 2005. I always tell that story about Roger, right? Because he did it so well for so long. He was the guy that got called back when the Eskimos needed someone for the Western Final and the Grey Cup. And for yourself, having done it in the game and you go in the game, that bought you probably maybe 1 or 2 more years when someone said, well, listen, we got this fullback coming out of university, or Maven or Mike at the time, who are we going to keep? Who are we going to keep? And we said, well, you know, who can do more for us, right? And that's literally sometimes the path to longevity for athletes. Some guys are stars right out of college and, you know, they're never going to have to play special teams. But you look at a guy like John Cornish, who played in Calgary forever. He started as a special teamer. Wes Cates in Saskatchewan. They make their names on special teams, and then they get an opportunity to shine at the position they want to play. So that's a really awesome story. And Matt Kellett, you mentioned Matt, great guy, lives here in Calgary. I believe he runs a couple of Orange Theory fitness franchises out here, and he's quite active in the fitness industry. And I could see why he'd be successful in that business just based on what you said on the relationship, on the, hey, you got this. It's just like we did in the playground. And when you have that ability to calm even another professional athlete down, it seems like that's a really great life skill. So yeah, that's a great story. I love hearing that. I love hearing that stuff. So your career was long. What did we say? 12 years?
Yeah,
12 seasons.
Like I played in 13 seasons, but really, like, I retired after the 07 season. So after my 10th or 11th full season, I retired, and I had just finished. I just signed a 4-year contract or something like that, and I showed up for training camp. Or no, I signed that 4-year contract at the beginning of 07, and I played that 1 year of it, and then I retired. Really, because I knew that was the last thing that I had to do, like, in my goals or things that I wanted to achieve, was get the contract. I had the championships, I had awards, and that was the kind of the last piece that I wanted to do. I had started, and
you were named Grey Cup MVP, correct? You were
Canadian Player of the Game.
Outstanding Canadian, yeah. In 05.
That's a pretty huge accomplishment. Like, I think any kid growing up in Canada playing football, that would be one of the greatest achievements, to be named to the Outstanding Canadian Game. How'd that feel? That's a big deal.
Just surreal. Like, it's almost unbelievable. You know what I mean? Because you kind of dream of stuff like that, or you kind of, you know, you're like, that's your goal, but you really, so many things can happen, right? And, you know, everybody, your teammates are playing, you're playing the opposition, like, it could go to anybody almost. And yeah, so it was so surreal. But like I said, like, after that and 2 Grey Cups and starting and then finally getting the contract, I realized when I showed up to training camp in 07, I was like, oh crap, this is not filling my cup anymore. That's not, you know, because I was always looking towards things outside of myself to make me happy or to fulfill me. And every time I had done one of those things, you put another one on there, right? Like, you put another carrot at the end of the stick, and you just keep on going. And that was the last one. So I had realized, like, oh man, this is not it.
And you were doing some MMA at that time, correct? And I see here on you kind of, we talked, or we sent you a little questionnaire about some of the things. It says ex-soldier, fire, EMT. Was that all while you were playing or after? Oh, there was a timeline. I remember I was following you so much. I mean, when someone's named the Wolverine, I'm a big comic book geek. Anybody that gets that nickname, I'm in. I'm all in, right? So the MMA, I mean, I can't take a punch. When I saw the MMA thing, and I think at the same time Braidwood was there, you guys were doing some MMA. Like, was that where you were veering towards? Like, hey, I want to get into the mixed martial arts. It was very popular at that time, right?
It was really big. And again, it was another thing that maybe if I do this, that'll be, you know, like, yeah, it's a really cool experience. And I actually, like, walking out to the ring, stepping out to the ring, that is one of the biggest rushes that a person can get, you know, like, it's it's pretty wild. But I think even after that third fight that I had 2 pro and 1 amateur. That last fight, I kind of knew again, like, okay, this isn't it either. Like, so it wasn't filling that void. It wasn't filling that cup. And all the things that I've done, like fire and EMT, that was after football, in the middle of running my tree cutting company. Again, like just attempts at trying to find happiness, trying to find fulfillment and contentment. The soldier thing was between high school and Rams. I didn't play football that first year out of high school. I had a bunch of injuries in high school. I didn't know if my body could really do what I wanted it to do. And so, yeah, I said, oh, maybe I'll join the Army then. So it was always about, like, doing that hyper masculine thing, and that thing that other people would respect. And then, but then also that brotherhood. So like that sense of family, the sense of family that teams give you, that infantry gives you, that fire gives you. I was doing all these things because I just wanted to belong, and I wanted to, I didn't really want to fit in, but I wanted to, like, I still wanted to be myself, but I just wanted to be included.
So at what point, Maven, then, so you're able to keep the locker room experience, and I think that's a really smart call, like going to EMT and whatnot, because that's one of the things you really do miss when you get out of the sport, right? You don't to have the brotherhood and the teammates around you for support. But obviously, along the way, you were going through a lot, and you had to start asking some difficult questions. Like, talk a little bit about that process, from a 50-year-old guy with gray in his beard that has never gone through anything like that myself. What was that process like? Was that something that was always tickling at you, even back with the Riders and the Lions? Or at what point did you start saying, you know what, I'm not getting my cup filled by chasing CFL? Yeah, great, outstanding Canadian. Yeah, I'm in the military. At what point did you start looking inside and asking those questions?
Well, that's like, how much time do we have? Because that could be, that could take up the whole show, really. But to try to, like, condense it into a short version, I had a near-death experience, and because of how because of how miserable I was always going to take the first exit opportunity that I had. And when that presented itself, but also at the same time, I wanted to wait for my daughter, my youngest, to graduate high school, and then I could feel like I did my job. But at the time of my experience, I think she was about 15 still. So I wasn't ready. But then during that experience, I do believe too that we all have lessons. We all have life lessons that we're supposed to learn while we're here. And really, like, as I'm traveling to the gates of heaven, I'm like, I didn't learn my lesson. And if you don't learn your lesson, you're destined to repeat. And I did not want to repeat. I didn't want to do this over again. So I kind of begged and pleaded, not today. I still got work to do. My youngest needs to graduate, and I still got work to do on myself. I got a lot to learn. And yeah, I ended up coming back and being on this plane, and I completely changed. I did a 180, and because doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity, right? So I completely changed everything. I stopped working out for an hour, 2 hours a day. I stopped distracting myself with video games and movies and all that other stuff. I never, ever looked within. And then that's what I started to do. I turned towards myself. I turned inward. I started reading. I started meditating. I started journaling. I started counseling. And it was through a very deep and guided meditation that I unlocked all of these suppressed memories that I had from childhood. And they all came back. They, being on the playground with the girls and laughing like the girls and talking like the girls and feeling so good and so joyous. And then the boys overhearing and making fun of me and starting to call me Michelle. And then as a kid, when you're growing up, like when you have those negative experiences, you adjust, you make that right-hand turn. So that's what I had done. Like, so that day, okay, my name's not Michael anymore, it's Mike, because I felt like the boys couldn't turn that into Michelle. And yeah, and you just like, that was the first day I put on that kind of armor. And over the years, you keep on adding to the armor and you keep on doing things to build yourself up. And over time, just like the golden Buddha, like you forget what's on the inside. You start to think that you are the armor and you forget that you're actually gold on the inside.
So what was that like? Because for a lot of guys, and we've had a lot of people on the show talking about their journey, and sometimes, the armor leads to addiction, mental health issues, suicide attempts. What was that like when you first started unpeeling the armor and looking outside? It sounds like you had a lot of help, but that's sort of a scary thing to do when your whole life, like you said, you took that right turn and pursued hypermasculinity, and you were very good at it, right? What was that like that day you started unpeeling? Was it an instant warmth, and did you feel the warmth and like you're on the right track, or was it hard to do at first?
Well, I did. Like, I felt that, like, holy cow, is that what that is? And then, yes, I found out right before COVID. So in a way, COVID was kind of a blessing for me because nobody was going out. So I would do stuff at home and I would experiment. And yeah, those days, this whole time I'm journaling. Okay, when am I my happiest? Well, I'm my happiest when I'm dressed up as a woman and I'm doing those feminine things when I'm talking to my friends at WestJet, the girls at WestJet, and things like that. And over time, but at the same time, I had the family and I had my wife and I had my kids. Kind of, you're in the middle of this push-pull. So it really was quite a struggle, because it's like, okay, what do I do with this? And what's going to happen if I go down this road or this road? But ultimately, I remember saying to my wife, like, it's literally like the end of the line for Mike. Like, Mike has nowhere to go.
And how do you manage, Maven, how do you manage those feelings as you're going down this road? It's becoming a louder and louder voice, let's just say, a louder and louder presence. It's pushing away. It's kind of pushing that armor you said you created when you created the Mike persona. Mm-hmm. At what point do you ever have this point where you look in the mirror, you say, oh crap, this is going to be not just difficult to admit and manage for myself, but oh crap, this is going to be a hard journey to walk outwardly. Like, no one chooses hard. Human nature, no one chooses hard. No one chooses like, hey, I want to do the hardest thing I've ever done and know that people are going to resent me, know that people aren't even going to ask me a question. People will walk the other way, but I'm going to do it anyways. And what was that like? Because I know that's what's going on now. Like, we know the climate of the world right now, right? I'm sure that you had very long discussions with yourself about that. What was that like, managing those feelings and emotions?
You do. You truly have to do a lot of work on yourself just to be able to get out the front door and face that. Because yes, you're facing ridicule, you're facing criticism. And for me, that was my major trauma from a childhood, was that ridicule and that, like, being excluded, and you know what I mean? Not like, so that I had to deal with that. And ultimately, through all the, some of the books that I read and the counseling that I had, you just slowly, you chip away at it and you slowly kind of start to grow into that. And I really have to, I give a lot of credit to my therapist. She really, like, she was meant for me. We had such a bond, and she had such a simple, loving, authentic way of framing perspectives and framing things and making it kind of simple in a way.
Did any of your, I guess I'll refer to your CFL career, your career as Mike in the CFL, have any preparation for you in that? I was thinking about, I saw the other day online one of the chat groups, you interacted with it, mentioned the article, the Third Down Nation article, and some people were super kind, and as predicted, some people were not so kind. Just like dumb things, like you had the sign for love up, right? And someone's like, "Oh, those are the devil horns. It's a devil's." Like, did any of your training as an athlete actually help with that? You know what? You got to silence, like you got to at least tune out some of the stupidity out there. Because if you take it all in, that can be a lot to absorb. Did any of the past life help where you're at right now?
I think so, a great deal, because I mean, you guys can attest, you have to have thick skin if you're going to be a pro athlete, because it is all about perfection. You get that, yeah, you did this great, but you did this wrong. You get this criticism, you get that, you get cut, you get traded. You have to be secure with yourself, and you have to handle that criticism. And yeah, I would definitely say that the past has helped me. But also, I'm also still like physically, I still look like I can take care of myself. So that also helps me go out into public, because people are not going to treat me the same way that they treat another person if they maybe appear a lot more feminine, or a lot maybe not as strong physically. So I have privileges, that I'm fully aware. And really this last week, with, like I said, the Facebook groups and the chat groups online, this is the first time that I'm really seeing this much negativity. I think in the last 3 years, or two years that I've been living authentically as a woman, I can count on one hand like negative experiences, whereas other people, it's just almost like every time they go out the door. But now this last week has shown me, like, wow, like yeah, you're right, there are a lot of people that are scared, are fearful, don't read the article. They don't read the article, they just comment on what they see in that picture, right? So
How about we do this? How about we take a break right now? Take a 2-minute break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about where we're at now, where you're at now, and just some of the things you've been experiencing in the last couple of years as you've come out as Maven. So we'll take a quick break. It's The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. You can follow us on all our socials. You know where to find us, at Chevy and Nasty, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, X, all of that. We are also streaming on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can find us on YYC Business. We're brought to you each week by Performance Freight Management, We Drone Real Estate Media, and like I said, YYC Business. We'll take a quick break, get some water, freshen up, and then we'll come back and we'll have another really engaging chat with Maven Maurer and, of course, my partner Nasty on the other side.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto, or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Do you want your business to be known? YYCCalgaryBusiness.ca is Calgary's only online media platform that gets you noticed. Short-form video content is rapidly taking over as the most effective way to engage your audience. Whether you're being interviewed on a vodcast, sharing a sizzle reel, or even hosting your own show, there is one place you can publicize your business. We want to tell your story and introduce you to our network of empowered business owners and leaders right here in Calgary. Isn't it time you took your digital game to 11? Call us or email us now.
Welcome back to The Ride, everybody. We've got Chevy, Nasty, and of course our special guest today, Maven Maurer. And Maven, the process that you went through, and it's interesting to me talking about how for some people COVID was that perfect time. It's almost like that was the pause that was put into your life at the perfect time to start figuring some of these things out. Now, fast forward and you had come out and you're living as a woman for the last 2 years. And then the BC Lions are holding their big celebration of the 2000 Grey Cup team. And I've got to imagine at this point, not all of your teammates knew about the transition yet. What was that like? Because I've got to imagine that's sort of a big step. It's one thing to move forward with your therapist, new circles, new friends, right? And find your lane and just ride. But to go back to the past, that had to have brought some apprehension along with it.
100%. I had tons of distress over this event for various reasons. Yeah, like I'd been living authentically as a woman full time, but I went to Winnipeg for training for CN day one. Really, all I ever went to was the campus and maybe a couple places around the hotel. And then I come out to Jasper where nobody knows who I am. And so I was a little bit in a bubble. And then, yeah, you're right. Like then this happened. I think I heard about this in June or July. I committed to going in September, but I actually didn't buy my plane ticket till the day before the event. So yeah, it's great apprehension. And like you said, those two worlds, my football past, I'm going to have to hear Mike. I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to look in my teammates' eyes. And I can see when people look at me and they know me from the past, I can almost see their perception of what I used to be. So it's very challenging. That's why a lot of trans people start somewhere new. It's just so much easier. And that's what I was doing. I was safe. I was in Jasper. I'm just outdoors and making new friends and, just being me and having fun. And then, yeah, I'm okay. Now I have to bring this world and bring them together. And one day I would be good with it. And the next day I would be crying. I'd be sweating. I'd be anxiety ridden. It was a lot of work, but ultimately I did not want to let fear rule any decisions that I make. Like never make any decisions based out of fear. Oh, what's the worst that could happen? That kind of stuff. What's the best that could happen? And I'm so glad that I went because the best that could happen happened.
So how was that? Did you feel the instant support of your old teammates and people you used to line up with and people that just loved you for who you are, regardless of the name change?
I did. The night before the event out on the field, we kind of had a mixer at the Shark Club, and it was not everybody was there, but a good about half the guys were there with their wives, with their girlfriends, and yeah, many of them didn't recognize me, which I take that as a compliment because that means I'm changing. And it's funny, you strike up conversations with one of the girls or one of the wives, and they're like, so how are you associated with the team? I'm like, oh, well, I used to play. Really? And so but yeah, so many of the guys, yeah, hugs, acceptance, love, pride. So many of the guys had expressed, how proud they were of me. And just to have that, like I said, I thought I had done a lot of work to go there and to be okay with myself out in public. But I really do believe that being there and feeling that love and that acceptance, it healed a part of me that I didn't know needed healing. And it has, yeah, it feels like it has lifted me up, and I'm higher than I ever thought I would be.
Did that allow you to, because I guess, and I would assume that, as Mike, you live that life as Mike, right? And now you're Maven. Maven is who you are. And people might not understand that you are Maven. Is Mike dead? First of all, is that how it kind of is? It like, we always talk about when an athlete retires from football. They always said, I remember it's Jed Roberts, and Jed Roberts, big friend of yours, big friend of Sheldon's, big friend of mine. Jed said, you die two deaths as a human being. When you retire from sport, you can never get that back, and then at the end, right? Would this be a third situation, like very unique? Like, how do you see Mike?
it's every transgender person is going to be different on how they handle this. But you're right. A lot of the time, what happens is a transgender person, they kind of kill off that old self. Whereas in my situation, Mike, you almost couldn't do that because, like, yeah, Mike's in the record books. Mike has a family. Mike has kids. So many of the things that I had were because of Mike, and I didn't want to wish any of that away. And my therapist, we kind of had a unique way to look at it. And they're like, well, how about, can we say goodbye to Mike with grace and gratitude? Like, thank you for getting me here, and it's more like you're driving a car down the highway, and thanks for getting us here, Mike. I'm going to take the front seat. I'm going to drive now. You can take the back seat. So that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it. Still, when it's like front and center in your face, it is hard to kind of digest and be okay with. But I think, like I said, with this last couple of weeks, especially having to talk about it so much, I think that has been really good for me and has been healing for me. And I would like to kind of portray another way to handle the transition such as this. Instead of killing off the old version of yourself, hey, let's thank them with grace and gratitude. Because really, like, the whole purpose for Mike being was to protect Maven. So really, like, in a twisted way, even though it was painful, and even though I was in the back seat, or I was in the closet, or I was in a dungeon, it felt like sometimes, it was for my own protection. Mike was protecting me from the bullies, and like the Wolverine especially was protecting me from the bullies and from the ridicule and things like that.
Well, and I'll tell you what, Maven, and for people that played with you or knew you back in the day, it does take a little transition process to wrap your mind around, because I've only known you as one, but it doesn't mean that those same people aren't excited to get to know Maven. And in fact, then, is we're putting Mike Maurer in the past. Who is Maven? What's driving you these days? What is life like for you on a daily basis, and what's like living in Jasper?
You know what? Like, I love it. Like, I'm so happy, and I never used the word content before, but I have to say, like, this is the closest that I've ever been. You can see I'm in a bus that's not quite finished yet. I'm doing all the work myself, but yeah, like, being able to be out here in the mountains, in and around the mountains, that in itself is healing. Spending this much time in nature, away from electronics, away from that kind of, the hustle and bustle of the city, that for me is healing. But really, like, I'm just enjoying doing the everyday stuff, going to work, hanging out with my friends, hanging out with my family when I get the chance. And, that fills me up, just being. So that's what I mean. Like, just by being is what's keeping me going. But also this thought of, well, hey, maybe I can use my voice to help people, raise awareness, be more visible, talk about the issues that are kind of at hand. And I'm finding, like, when I help people, I'm even amplified that much more. It's like in Monsters Inc., when they're running off energy off all the screams, and then they realize at the end, like, laughter and love is like 1,000 times more amplified. That's kind of the way it is for me. Like, I used to run on anger and just being hard nosed and being tough, and I used to, like, that used to fuel me, but it didn't last very long. And then now it's just like, wow, it's so much easier, and there's so much more flow.
It's very interesting you say that, because I remember in getting out of football, and I remember for the longest time, football for me was it was a vessel for me to prove people wrong, right? Always trying to prove people wrong, always trying to, like, who says I can't do it, and then I do it, and who's the other person that says I can't do it, and then I do it to prove them wrong. And I'm always listening for the voices of people that I can't do it. And at one point I realized I spent so long listening to the voices of the people that said I can't do it, I stopped paying attention to the people that said you could do it all along, right? And so who are those people in your life? Because we talked about before, you got to tune out a lot of noise. because there's going to be a lot of people that are not comfortable with your transition from Mike to Maven. There's going to be people that are going to ridicule, maybe watch this and not have a positive opinion. Who are the people that you tune into that say, hey, you know, like you mentioned, you have family, you mentioned you have wife, kids. Are they on the same wavelength as you to support you to where you're going and where you are now?
100%. Yeah, my kids, my wife are so supportive. Even though we don't spend every day together, you know, I'm talking to them every day. I have so many friends out here in and around Jasper, so many friends in the trans communities online, Facebook and what have you. You know, Reddit saved me for those first couple of years there. So you find community, and even before this, just talking to people, you like finding out that like, oh, I really helped this person with what I said, or you know, helping them out. That really filled me up. So this now is just, you know, it's just amplifying everything, you know, 100 times. I'm enjoying it, and yeah, I can't wait to reach more people and try to change some minds, because you're right, there's so much fear and animosity, and I don't understand why. You know, it doesn't have anything to do with you. It's just me, right? Like it's, you know, and we talked about before, it's not a choice. The only choice is to whether or not you accept it.
So now is because I mean, we only played together a couple of years, but I don't remember you being one of the media whores that always needed to be center of attention and grabbing Daryl Davis for an interview. Is this in your comfort zone, doing interviews and becoming, you know, like it or not, I guess, a spokesman? You know, is this something a role that you're comfortable with right now, Maven, or is this something you're learning as you go?
I a little bit of both. I'm learning as I go. Back in the day, like especially when I was with Edmonton or even Ottawa, I still had personality. So I was the fullback, but I was doing different things, and it caught the attention of media. So when there was no story to be told really during the week, they were like, well, what's Maurer doing? Like, 'cause Maurer's always doing something weird or something, you know, off the beaten path. So they would like, you know, I stayed in my trailer at the stadium during training camp because I didn't want to drive back and forth every day. So I stay like, I just do weird things like that. I lived, when I played for Edmonton, I lived at Wabamun in my trailer. And yeah, we did, I think, I think it was Sports Center or Sportsnet. Sportsnet did like a Cribs episode. You know, they came to the campground and they saw, you know, kind of a day in the life, you know. And then I had the MMA stuff, so I was always doing something like just different and just,
Right.
you know, just being me, just exploring. And I love learning new things, and I like doing things that are different. And you know,
Okay, then could I change gears a little bit here, Maven, and ask you about the bus, because it's starting to get cold outside, and obviously have you always been living in the bus in Jasper, or was this affected by the fire, or what's the story with the bus? Because there's got to be something behind that.
Well, and I don't know if you guys believe in like premonition or anything like that, but it's really hard to find a place to live in Jasper. And going in and out of the mountains on a train, you see all the dead trees and you see everything that's like, wow, like it looks like a matchstick, and it's just about ready to, it's about ready to go. So really, as I was looking for a place and it was so hard to find one, then all of a sudden I really shifted, and I was like, you know what, I think I need to live in a bus, because I want to be able to, if Jasper's ever on fire or if there's ever an emergency, I can drive away. And that really started to play into my way of thinking. And yeah, so shortly after I had qualified as a conductor with or not even actually before I was qualified, I think it was around spring, I bought the bus and I started working on it then. And this is last, I want to say May or June.
Wow.
And it's been a long process, way more work than I anticipated, because you watch a YouTube video and it takes them like a weekend or 15 minutes or whatever. And here I am like a year and a half later and I'm still working on it. But no, it's livable, it's cozy, it's not finished, but I'm almost at the point where I get to do those finishing things, and that part is exciting. So I like creating, I like I don't want to say I like building, but I like making things. I like creating. So this is kind of like my own creation, and it's a fun little hobby that keeps me busy, keeps me doing things. And I absolutely love being outside. Like I've always wanted to live on an acreage. I've been trying to move my family to an acreage outside of Regina for probably a decade, and it just didn't ever work out. So after my youngest graduated, I came out, and this was kind of all part of it. Like, hey, okay, I've done my job. All my kids are graduated high school. They're all adults. I can do my own thing, and I want to live. I want to live in a bus. I want to travel. I do. I get a little stir crazy. I get a little claustrophobic staying in one place too long. So it is. It's nice to change up the scenery and move around.
So let me ask you: are you working for the rail? Is it CN or CP?
Yeah.
CN.
CN. Yeah. CN.
CN.
Rail.
And you're with WestJet, so you travel on air and on land,
Well,
or
I
is
used
WestJet
to.
done?
Yeah, WestJet's done because during COVID there they basically shut down. They almost shut down Regina. Oh, Regina almost lost the airport, but they still have it. And then WestJet laid off a bunch of employees, and Regina they only kept the major Canadian cities, and then everyone else is basically subcontracted. So yeah, that was done. I still have my travel privileges for another year or two, so trying to take
Nice.
advantage of those. Yeah.
My wife's a WestJetter. She's a CSA here
Oh,
in Calgary. So
right on.
yeah, I was going to ask if you got the lifetime benefits, but not quite, I guess, eh?
I wasn't there long enough. I got 6 years at the time, so I think I have about a year and a half left.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got to take advantage.
So,
Yeah,
so
there
what's
you
the
go.
coolest thing about being a train conductor?
Honestly, like the scenery, uh, going in and out of the mountains every day, like that's our office view, and some of the it's just it's crazy. Like we get someone. I think one of the engineers said the other day, it's like being like in a National Geographic episode every time you're working, because yeah, you're going through the mountains, the trees, everything looks different depending on the time of day, the season. Um, you see the different animals. We saw, okay, what was very cool was the very first trip that I went on, we saw a wolverine. We saw a
Oh, no way.
wolverine eating a carcass as we're coming up, and this is this is like February. This is my first ever trip, and I got a trainer with me, and we're coming up, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, that's a wolverine!" And they're like, "I've never seen a wolverine," and I felt like it was like a changing of the guard. Like it was like, okay, there's Wolverine, bye Wolverine. Okay, Wolverine's done. Now I'm like doing this. And
Yeah.
I thought that was super cool. But yeah, like, bears, elk, moose,
That's so
eagles. Yeah.
cool. That's so cool. Our show is called The Ride, and we always say our ride. It's not a bar stool. It's not a bar stool podcast. It's more like a road trip, more like a campfire. And this has been such a great quick hour, Maven. But before we let you go, because this is The Ride, we always have a series of questions we ask our guests. So we've kind of transitioned into it already, talking about your experience as a conductor. But if you had to take your ultimate road trip, now you have the benefit of air, rail, or I guess in a vehicle in your bus. Where would you go taking the ultimate road trip?
Honestly, I think my ultimate goal is I want to do a tour of North America. Like I want to go up. I want to see the Yukon. I want to see Alaska. I want to see I've never been past Montreal towards the east. So I want to I've heard how beautiful the East Coast is in Canada. And yeah, I want to like dip all the way down to the States and back up, and from Florida to California and then back up again. Like that's my ultimate goal. I hope I can do it in this thing. That would be sick.
Well, that's the second question, Maven. What would you be riding in? Would you fix up the van, or would you get something a little more gas efficient?
No, I'm taking my home with me. I'm taking my home with because you never know.
So what is your home? What kind of bus is it? Tell us what you're riding in.
This is like a 35-foot school bus. So I think it was a 66-seater. So I think the biggest ones are about 80 or 84. So this is a dog nose, so it's got the front end sticking out. It's a dog nose 66-seat bus. And I got about 28 or 27 feet of living space inside. by about 7.5 wide. And yeah, I've got everything. I'd give you a tour, but it's like, it's just in shambles because some of it is work and some of it is still in progress. And then I got my personal stuff. But eventually someday I can take you on a tour.
When it's done, you're going to give us a tour. Now, you're taking this road trip in the bus. Who are you taking with you?
Who wants to ride with me? Like, honestly, I'm good on my own, but hey, if my family wants to come, that's my first choice. If my wife and kids want to come, that's the first choice. We are so tight. I miss them terribly. We watched Elf the other night, and I was crying after because, yes, it's a great movie, but I miss watching that with them. So some of those moments are hard, but we're such a tight knit family. We have a good time together. My kids are adults, and we're all like friends, and it's a great experience for sure. That's who I'm taking with me.
Demetrius Maxey last week said he was taking us, but I'll forgive you for not taking Chevy Nasty because that sounds like pretty awesome.
Well, that's what I mean. There's gonna be guest stops. There's gonna be just like I'm gonna see everybody. That I think that is part of the thing is like, hey, where's everybody at? And I'm gonna put pins. I'm gonna have a map on the wall, and I have pins in there, and I'm gonna be do my rounds and stop in at every city. Go
have a coffee, go have a drink. Yeah, I like that.
Exactly.
So what are you eating on the way? And I know going from Alaska to Toronto, there's going to be a lot of different choices. Are you like I think Maxie was like a bag of Doritos. Are you like a sushi guy? Jamin, guy we had on my last road trip, we're eating pizza in the car, which I don't recommend that because it's a little dicey at times. But what are you eating on the road trip?
You know what? I'm either doing one or two things. I'm either fasting, or I'm eating all that, like you said, the sushi, the peanut butter sandwiches. You know what? Like on our long trips as a conductor, we're on there 10, 12 hours sometimes. If all I had in my bag was peanut butter and honey, maybe some crackers or some bread or whatever, I'd be good. That's all I need. That's like my survival. That's my one survival.
But bread optional.
Yeah. I can just spoon it. Use a spoon or a knife right out of the jar. Yeah, I'm good.
Awesome.
And finally, you got the nice Beats headphones there, Maven. What are we listening to in the road trip in the bus?
Oh wow! Right now, it's I can't get enough of Doja Cat. You want something that's going to like get you up and give you some sass and give you some that's what I'm listening to right now. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to listen to that tonight.
Maven, I'll tell you what, it's really been awesome just reconnecting with you and hearing about your story. And, I just want you to know, I think you found this out. Your teammates and people that know you and love you and respected you are always going to know you, love you, and respect you. I'm just glad that you've reached back out and are sharing it with us. And, I just hope a smooth journey. I hope you're in a position to continue to inspire people in this country, because I know for a lot of people it's really difficult. But I really appreciate you coming on and joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, and it was awesome to reconnect. And I just love seeing everybody too that used to know the old version of me. I'm so excited to introduce the newer version of me. I love me. I'm basically like my old self, except just happier. Happier, a little bit more feminine, but I still like a lot of all the same stuff. So yeah, we'll get along great.
Right on.
Well, thanks so much, Maven, for joining us. Really appreciate that. And be safe out there in Jasper. I know it's with those forest fires. Hopefully, if the fires do come, you can pick up and go to a safer place. So thanks for joining us today on the ride.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Do you want your business to be known? YYCCalgaryBusiness.ca is Calgary's only online media platform that gets you noticed. Short-form video content is rapidly taking over as the most effective way to engage your audience. Whether you're being interviewed on a vodcast, sharing a sizzle reel, or even hosting your own show, there is one place you can publicize your business. We want to tell your story and introduce you to our network of empowered business owners and leaders right here in Calgary. Isn't it time you took your digital game to 11? Call us or email us now.
And welcome back, everybody. As always, you can find us at Chevy and Nasty. Look us up on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter. Yeah, you name it. You know where to find us. And make sure, guys, if you like this one, share it. This one, to me, Chev, was probably the most fascinating guest that we've had. I mean, talking about somebody that, you know, I played with back a lifetime ago and an identity ago. To have Maven Maurer come on and talk so openly, because I know going into this, you and we both had a ton of questions we wanted to ask. Chev, what was your big takeaways from today?
You know what? It really was interesting. First of all, you nailed it on the head. This was a real dynamic ride. It took us everywhere, and that's what we're supposed to be, right? Great stories, spark great conversations. I thought it was just that. No real agenda except really to get Maven to tell her story, and kind of from a perspective that maybe she wouldn't get to tell typically. Like, she's done the media rounds, right?
She's CBC. She's doing all the big media right now. Yeah.
But no one could relate to her as to what she was when she was Mike, the football player, the ultra macho dude, won the Grey Cups, won the trophies, and then transitioned. So I really appreciate that we could kind of know the past, draw some stuff out from there, some good stories, some good football stories and life stories, and then kind of get into where she is now, and just really appreciated her energy. Like, there was I didn't feel a very political, sell job. This was not her selling herself or selling trans. It was just her being herself.
This was Maven telling her story
to
a couple of guys that knew her back in the day. And that's what I love. Like, for me, when she talked about taking that right turn when she was being bullied and harassed as a kid, and built the character from Michael to Mike, and just built the ultra masculine version of Mike, which he was during his Wolverine days, to that time when football and martial arts just wasn't filling the cup, and going into those deep moments of introspection and trying to figure out what she was all about. And then, you know, the thing that probably got me the most, though, Chev, is what would that be like? It's not like you're the guy who's the stud in high school and you show up to your 10-year reunion with a big pot belly and you're bald and you're on your third wife and 6 kids that are all like shitty kids. This is there's nothing more fundamental to who a person is than how you identify as your gender. I'm a guy. Yeah. I'm 6'5". I played football. My name's Sheldon. But you know, like, you talk about one of the most biggest pieces of our identity is our gender. And for Maven to come out invited back to the reunion party with the BC Lions and having to face teammates that knew her back in the day as somebody totally different, that fascinated me. What must have been going through her mind when that happened. So for me, I'm just glad that she was willing to share the story.
Yeah, and I think for me, a couple of times when she said she was content, and you know, she was content, she was happy. She couldn't say that before. She checked all the boxes when she was Mike and did all the things, but she wasn't content. And now she could say her cup is filled. And there are very few people who are living their, what do you call it? Their natural born lives, whether they identify as male, female, born, that can say that, you know, whether you have the best job in the world, the best kids in the world. There are so many people that are struggling with contentment. And I really appreciated the back half of the conversation as well, when we kind of got off the football and we got away from her journey transitioning from Mike to Maven. We just talked about her life now as a train conductor, and, you know, building, like, I follow a whole bunch of Instagram pages about turning a bus into a camper van. I follow all those because I'm like, yeah, one day I would love to do that. Well, guess what? I'm pretty sure that one day that will never come for me, because I'm that guy that says, oh, I want to do that and I want to do that. here she is doing it. She's driving trains through the most beautiful landscape in the world, which is the Canadian wilderness. She's living in a bus. And again, I really love the strategy there, in that, yeah, if this place goes up in flames, I can drive my house out of here. I was like, oh wow, that's like so smart. But she's doing something that many of us wish they could do. I hear so many guy friends saying, man, I wish I could go off the grid. I wish I could just do that. And here she is living it, right? So I really appreciated that, because in that, it took away from the story of the week. You know, it took away from the football that I always lean into. And it was just like having a conversation with someone at 48 years old, just living their best life. And I thought that was cool. I thought
driving trains. Yeah, driving trains.
Well,
folks, I'm sure you guys have a lot to say about this one as well, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Keep it respectful. This was our a former teammate. Well, once a teammate, always a teammate, but just a fascinating story. So, guys, we'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I think that's all the time we have for this one. So once again, I just want to thank our sponsors, Performance Freight Management, We Drone Real Estate Media, and YYC Calgary Business. We couldn't do it without you guys, and we certainly couldn't do it without you. So thanks again for watching. We'll catch you next time on The Ride.